And SRG architecture team, as always, many other design and construction subs are part of the team, but those are our two flagships, and I'll let them take it away.
Well, good evening. I'm going to try to do this without a microphone. If you can hear me in the back, perfect. If you can't, just raise your hand. Appreciate it. My name is Mortenson. I'm the project director for the Mortenson SRG team. Thank you very much for coming tonight and showing an interest in what the 1063 block can be. With me are our partners from SRG, AHBL, WSP, JCI, and the rest of the alphabet soup. Yeah. Mortenson Construction has been in business for over 60 years. We're a family-owned business. We have headquarters in Seattle and in Portland, Oregon. We are a national winning design build firm and have done many other notable projects, including our state legislative historic rehabilitation project. That project we did with our design partners, SRG. SRG also has offices in Seattle and Portland, another national award-winning architectural firm, and many projects like the Bothell Cascadia campus, as well as the ledge building that we've done together. Tonight, I'll let these gentlemen who are going to be presenting introduce themselves, and then we'll introduce our solution. Go ahead.
Yes. I don't know whether to do the mic. Can you hear me without the mic? Mm-hmm. Or would you prefer the mic? Mic. Marvin, you should have done it with the mic. My name is Rick Zeev. I'm an architect and principal of SRG Partnership. Very excited to be here tonight.
I'm Dennis Hassel. I'm also a principal at SRG Partnership and an architect.
James Saywell, engineering consultant on the job for the SRG Mortenson team.
So, many people would say that the 1063 block is an important block with respect to its context forming the northern border of our Capitol campus. Others might say that it's important in terms of it forms the southern border of our downtown. We think it's important for both. Our solution begins to capture, bringing together our city and our community with our historic Capitol campus. Our solution is one building. It responds to both the city and the campus. It responds to the grid, the orientation that is different for those two elements of our community. It responds to the scale of both of those differently, and the materiality of the building itself responds to that. It comes together to form a nexus, if you will, a handshake between the city and the Capitol. That handshake is formed both philosophically, but as well as structurally in our building in the atrium solution. That atrium solution brings forward a whole bunch of opportunities like natural daylight to all the offices. Narrow office building cores, so you have views both inside and outside, creating a highly desirable workplace, creating a very comfortable workplace, and creating an environment that brings high value in terms of energy performance in a building. That is the highlight, if you will, the highlights of our solution. I'll let our design team talk about more of the specifics.
That's great. Thanks, Marvin. The three of us are going to present this together. And James got invited because he's the only one. We needed someone with hair to be it's up here. So that's a young man with hair. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our philosophy and the way the team works. We believe in architecture by team. There's no single individual designing this building. And so as we walk through tonight, you're going to hear Dennis's view of urban design, all the forces that act on the outside of this building to form it. I'll talk about the architecture and interior forces program. And James will talk about energy performance, because that was a big part of the project, a big part of a form giver for this building. And I'm going to go back to the first public meeting, Marvin, I think it was in December. And what we heard at that public meeting is this project is so important and the location is such that it really needs to be part of the Capitol campus and also part of the city. And so a metaphor for this project, and you'll see it as we go through, is a handshake. We feel this building can be a metaphorical handshake between the Capitol campus and the city of Olympia, and we're very excited to share that with you. So we're going to actually show you the project. We have a fly-through we're going to run right now, and then we're going to come back after we look at the fly-through and talk in more detail about the generation of the ideas. So we'll see if our technology works. I'm going to comment just a little bit as we go through. This gives you an idea of the building. It's massive. It's really developed into two pieces. One piece that relates more closely to the Capitol campus and its character and materials. And then as you revolve around, we felt very strongly the north side of the building should respond to the city. And so we've chosen brick to clad the north piece, different fenestration. We pulled the top level back, trying to step the building down in scale. We felt very strongly we didn't want a solid wall, a 5-story wall like the GA building has facing the city. So this, you're coming up Columbia Street here, you get a sense of the main entry to the building on the southwest corner. This is a rendering we'll talk more about in a minute. There's a civic campus plaza that we created on the south side. We pushed the building back about 25 feet from the property line so the building has a foreground. We turned the corner here on Capitol Way, and we heard in the public meeting loud and clear, we want it activated. There's lots of glass, you can see what's going on in the building. There are canopies, there are street trees. It's all part of being a friendly building towards the city. Here we have a small city plaza that's created on the northeast edge, and there's an entry into the building here. We felt it was very important to have a gesture of public open space back to the city. You can enter the building. You're in a 5-story atrium that is filled with daylight. There's a main communicating stair up through the 5 levels of the building. Lots of wood finishes. We heard loud and clear in our proprietary meetings that you wanted warm materials that represented the state of Washington. Returning, you come towards the front entry of the building. This is the reception area. You'd overlook the atrium. There's seating, trees, landscape. It's really the city's and this building's community space. So you turn back towards the entry, and then we felt strongly the main entry of the building should have an axial view of the Capitol Dome. So this is where we created the entry in this carved out space. So you have these wonderful views back to the dome. So with that, we're going to get into a little more detail. I'm turning it over to Dennis.
Thanks, Rick. I think what we want to do now is tell you how we got to that solution. And one of the first things we always do when we design a building, any building really, no matter how large or small, is look at the context. And we want to understand how that context will affect the design of the building, but also we want to understand how the building then can begin to respond to that context and give back, so that in the end, we have a building that's fully integrated with the city and also contributes value back to the community and not just be a standalone structure. Starting that, this is the west lawn of the historic campus. We're all very familiar with that. And our site, which is right here, is very critical in the evolution of the campus and in creating that sense of campus. And it creates, partially, a northern boundary to the west lawn, and it also begins to anchor the campus on that corner and create a presence on Capitol Way. So this is a composite drawing diagram. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense to any of you, but I'll try and explain it. We looked at a lot of different things, and we tried to combine many of those here. One is, what is Capitol Way in terms of its connection to downtown? There's a lot of activity, there's a lot of retail, there's a lot of interaction with the sidewalk, and as Rick said earlier, we wanted to make sure that the east facade of the building is friendly to the sidewalk and helps activate the sidewalk and is a friendly place for pedestrians to be. On the south facade, clearly that's a boundary to the west, the historic west campus and the lawn, and again, we want to make sure that that's a facade that respects the scale and character of the campus and the water and white buildings that are there now, and creates that strong edge and sets a precedent for what may happen on the GA site once that's redeveloped. So we begin to look at a plaza and a strong facade. The west side, where we have Columbia Street that comes into the project, a lot of pedestrian movement on that street as well. We want to make sure that Columbia and the facade that faces Columbia is just not a blank facade, but begins to again reinforce the pedestrian movement and respond to that movement along that street as well. But also, again, set a precedent for what may happen on the GA site, and that the GA site and our building on our site begins to form that street and the boundaries to that street. And on the north facade, clearly we've got the city, and we want a facade there that really respects and addresses the quality and character of the city. And we get to the corner here. Current zoning says that this corner can be redeveloped up to 60 feet in height, and you have to build out to the sidewalk. So we want to make sure, again, at that corner, we have some presence for the city, help anchor that corner, and provide a relationship into the city itself. So that leads us to some conclusions about how we want to proceed. One is that there are really two armatures that we think to the site. The one that's on the north and west is really the city armature. And we think that it should respect the scale and character of the city and receive the city grid that's a little bit different along that facade of the building than the grid that happens along 11th. And then the other armature we think should respect the scale and character of the campus. Not only does it face the campus, but when it faces Capitol Way, it really announces the presence of the campus along Capitol Way, and as I said earlier, anchors that corner. The next conclusion we drew is we have some interesting forces taking place right here on the southwest corner of the property. One is there's this diagonal view to the dome that really runs through the property, and the only place you can see the dome from our site is about 15 feet in from that corner. And so we want to look at that as a possibility. We also have an access here with the Tivoli fountain that's right in the middle of the lawn. I think that's something we should consider as well. And finally, we have these incredible historic oak trees that are right in front of our building. While they block many of the views from the building itself, they help create a place right in front of that building. And combined with the other things, really begin to suggest that that could be the entry to our building, or an entry zone to the building. And then the final conclusion, again, we talked about Columbia here, that we want to make sure we create a very strong facade and an arrival plaza in front of the building that, again, sets the stage for what may happen on the GA building, so that we have across that north boundary to the lawn, we have a continuous boundary, a continuous frame, and an anchor to the north lawn, to the west lawn along its northern edge. So I think those are the main considerations in general and in very specifically how we want to begin to respond to the site. And at the same time, this is going to offer us opportunities to see what we can contribute back to the neighborhood and the context.
We're going to take you through a few diagrams now that are explaining our attitude about the architecture. And we don't mean to pick on the GA building too much, but we just wanted to say with this diagram, we don't want a building that's 220 foot on each side. If you're in the GA building today and your office is right there, you're about 110 feet from daylight. It's a very tough place to work. So we want to not do that. So some of the early thinking we had on the site when we looked at test of fit, how do you put 200,000 square feet plus on this site, and also maximize daylight, we came up with the notion of an atrium where you're more like 30 feet from daylight, and have James talk just a little bit from the energy point of view on this.
Yeah, the atrium we decided to go for was instead of a courtyard to get daylight deep into the building. The main reason for that was to reduce heat loss, but also it's actually a more cost-effective solution than having insulated walls, insulated glazing around the whole edge of the building. So we got the daylight deep into the space. We also aligned the office space east and west so that we get less problems with glare and discomfort.
So in essence, we were able to get the same square footage on, but maximize daylight for all folks in the building. And then this is back to the central diagram, where there is a campus side of the building that picks up the character and context and materials of the Capitol campus, and there's a city side that respects the materials, character, and scale of the city, and what they form in between is the atrium, and that's the sense of community or a heart to the building. So at certain times there can be community events in this space, other times not, but it represents the coming together of the two sides. And as Dennis mentioned, there are two different grids. The City of Olympia grid is 5 degrees off the Capitol campus grid. So we expressed that in the building. The blue bar is on the campus grid, the red bar is on the city grid, and the resultant space is the atrium in between. And there's also an opportunity for diagonal pedestrian movement through the site. And so the City of Olympia can essentially walk through and end up on axis with the Capitol dome. And we thought if that kind of flow through the building could be allowed at the ground floor, it would be a very good thing. And so we ended up with, as you saw in the fly-through, there's a Capitol side entry on the southwest side with views of the dome, and there's a city entry, if you will, on the northeast side that you walk through this open plaza and enter the building there. And then most importantly, we've created these public plazas. This is the campus plaza, which is a full block long and about 30 to 40 feet deep. And then here is the city plaza on this corner that greets you and send you into the building. And so this is kind of the final massing that we ended up with. Campus side, city side, this is we call this the western core. It has elevators, toilets, conference rooms, put on the west side intentionally. You can have a small number of windows there, and that's best for the solar orientation on the west side to reduce the amount of glazing. And then this is a vertical stair tower and the skylight over the atrium. And so this is what we're really trying to do. And the human handshake is represented in this building, and to us this was a wonderful and appropriate kind of metaphor for the whole project. So James is going to talk a little bit more about sustainability and energy.
So that you can see from the depth of the floor plate here, from this section, that the daylight gets quite deep into the space. You never get more than 32.5 feet away from daylight, which is considerably closer than anything you have in the GA building. The atrium is a conditioned space as opposed to a courtyard, but it's conditioned passively, so the air from the office spills into the atrium, keeps it cool in the summer. The shading at the top prevents the sunlight from hitting the desks on the north half of the building. And to generate all this heating and cooling, we use what's called a ground source heat pump. Essentially that, we just pull heat out of the ground in the winter and we put it back in there in the summer. This is an extremely energy efficient way of generating heating and cooling. And to provide ventilation and air conditioning in the space, we use an underfloor air system, which is more comfortable and more energy efficient than a conventional overhead system. In the atrium, we provide a little bit of extra heating in the winter using a radiant slab.
Just a little bit, the building structure is poured-in-place concrete, which also has thermal mass that can help energy and thermal performance, comfortability in the building. So all of the structure, slabs, and columns are poured-in-place concrete. We are 13 feet floor to floor on a typical floor. We're 16 feet floor to floor facing the Capitol. So they're very, very tall ceilings. If the 14-inch raised floor, you have 10 inches clear to the underside of the ceiling. Just quickly, the stacking in the building, it's on 5, there's a basement and 5 levels and a roof. The blue represents Washington State Patrol. So Washington State Patrol ended up on 4 contiguous floors. The top floor is a series of other state agencies, but in our proprietary meetings it was felt that the contiguous nature of these floors made sense for Washington State Patrol. The ground floor is actually on the Union Street elevation, so you can walk right into the lobby. The main lobby for the building at large is off of 11th. You're up at the Olmsted Lawn level here as you enter the building. So it's nestled into the hillside, and then there are 5 levels.
Sure. In white here is primarily the footprint of the building, and what you see in color is the landscaping that occurs around the building. Clearly that angles up from Union up to 11th. So as Rick said, we have the city plaza here on the Union Avenue side that enters into the lowest level of the building, not counting the basement, of course. And then that is directly into the atrium. And then on the 11th Avenue side, which is 1 floor up, we have the main civic plaza that is the main focus and main fronting on the Capitol Lawn. The landscaping is clearly, we'll have street trees all around the building, some heavy ones in the front where we might preserve some of the ones that are there now. But the idea is that we will have some landscape in the front with some seating walls, a drive-through or drop-off for cars that is separated from the rest of the plaza by bollards, so we don't have curbs and that sort of thing. And the plaza can be used for greater gatherings if we need it. We have a stair entrance down to Columbia off to the side. As I said, we wanted to address that street, that street's an important pedestrian connector with the downtown. And as you can see, the building is angled back to reflect the downtown grid, which does something else too. It exposes the Capitol aspect or the campus side of the building as you approach from downtown. We're looking at landscaping all around the perimeter. One idea we want to explore is the ability to maybe harvest some of the rainwater off the roof and create a series of cascading rain gardens that goes around the building and terminates then at the city plaza. So in general, that's what we're trying to do, is keep it very active, keep the sidewalks pedestrian friendly with landscaping, but also make the landscaping functional to the sustainability and efficiency of the building.
We're going to walk through the renderings now. This is a view of the interior atrium where you can see the 5 levels. This is where you enter on Union Street. You go up a grand stair and arrive at the public lobby. Lots of wood in the space. This is finished wood on the fascia here. We're using glulam timbers as king post truss at the roof to span the width of the atrium, about 90 feet. And we really like the idea of using wood structurally and as a finished material to represent one of the great resources of Washington State. So there's seating here, landscape. All of the main shared conference rooms, and the largest conference room in the building is on this level. So this can be used as pre-function space if there are large meetings happening in the building. This can be pre-function as you go to the various meeting rooms that are located on this level. This is hopefully an irresistible stair that's on the interior for communication, encouraging everyone to use the stairs versus the elevator as they walk up and down in the building. And if you'll notice, we kind of had some fun. We said maybe the wonderful mural in the GA building could be relocated into the atrium of this space to preserve that fantastic artifact. And there could be other interpretive things going on in here, talking about the energy use in the building, dashboards, other interpretive displays of all kinds. Just a little bit about the exterior. This is the view from the southwest. The main entry to the building, carved away, covered drop-off, kind of a warm, welcoming glow as you walk in. We tried to have this building respect the historical Wilder and White buildings on the historic campus, but still be a modern, forward-looking building. It has a base, kind of a middle, and a top, just like the classical buildings, but interpreted in a modern way. Lots of glass at the base. More or less a vertical expression. These pilasters and columns are on a 9'4" center, and interesting, from all the buildings, the historical buildings, the pilasters and columns are on a 10-foot center, so we felt this kind of picked up the scale and rhythm of the historical buildings, but very modern. And these are sunshades that help shade the glass in the summertime, and all the different facades have different percentages of glass. We work closely with James, getting the appropriate percentage of glass. You want less glass on the west side of the building because you have low, intense sun. I think we ended up with about 35% vision glass on the south side. And then you can see the open campus plaza here. We built a physical model. We didn't bring it tonight, but you can see that this is a higher view of the Capitol campus piece. And by the way, the materials, it's precast concrete that matches the Wilkinson stone color and texture as close as we can that are on the historical buildings. They're bronze-colored metal panel here and clear glass. That's the simple palette that is through the entire Capitol campus. It's just 3 materials, and we felt strongly that's what we wanted to see on this part of the building. So that character wraps around to Capitol Way. Very glassy along Capitol Way. You can see what's going on in the building. Canopies. And here's the public plaza. And then on the city side, this is the brick. We can choose the color of that a little later. We're showing the bronze metal. This is bronze metal, is brought around the entire building. So the thread, if you will, from the campus side to the city side is a bronze-colored metal that brings the whole building together. And we really want to point out again, we pulled the top level back 7 feet, and then we added a lot of glass to make this pedestrian friendly. And if you notice, the building really does look like it's stepping down the hill. So I think it's going to be perceived more like a 3 or 4 story building on the city side than a 5-story building like GA.
Rick, just
Oh,
want
yeah.
to mention one thing. Behind that, this is the entrance into the lower floor of the building, which is where the atrium is. It's also where all the major conference rooms for the building will be. And we've also designed one of those in a way, or proposed in a way, that it can be converted or supplied with a cafe that might provide some sort of coffee or whatever into the conference rooms, but also potentially maybe into the plaza itself, so that we are trying to create activity along that street that would continue the activity on Columbia Way.
Good point, Dennis. We heard that clearly in the last public meeting as well. Now we're wrapping around to the north side. That's the city bar and the city plaza with the top level is pulled back all the way along. There's our skylight into the atrium and mechanical penthouses. And if you come around to the west side, I think this is one of our favorite spots where this piece is on the city grid and this piece is on the Capitol grid, so you get this pulled back from the street. You have a nice green area and landscape, and then you see this part edge of the building at the entry. And that, we're going to go to our SketchUp model. So we just to let you know, we brought a complete 3D model with us tonight. So we have the ability to go anywhere you want to go. So questions from the audience, they take me to the 3rd floor on the southwest side. We can do that in this physical model, or digital model, and we'd be happy to do that. The final points, I want to read this because it's very important. We think this is the right building, the right solution for this incredibly important site. We think it's contextual, we think it's energy efficient, it's modern, it looks to the future, and most of all, we think it expresses the integrity and the honesty of the institutions that are housed in this building, and we would be proud to be your team for this. So Marvin, in closing.
This team has worked here in the capital city on this campus for over 15 years together. Some of us actually live here. So this project is more than a project for this community. It's a project for us as well. And as Rick correctly said, we would be very proud to be a part of it as we are to be proud members of this community. Thank you. Happy to open up to any questions you might have. Here in the front.
Very quickly, did you mention your EY?
We did not.
Would you?
We would have to defer to BES if they want that information.
Oh, yeah, sure, by all means.
We are well within the range of 20 to 40 as required by the RFP. Any other questions? Further back.
Is that an outdoor roof terrace up on the north side? Is that for outdoor use?
The building can be designed for that use. It is not currently contemplated in the program. The elevators do go up there. The building is set up for photovoltaic use up on the roof. In the event that BES and the state wants to take advantage of that, or it could be an outdoor roof terrace, yes. Other questions? In the far back.
Yeah. It looks like you've just about had it there. Can you show us what it would look like coming up Capitol Way from the north? You're good.
From the north?
From the north towards campus, at street level.
Can you walk up the street?
We have our young 20-year-old technical expert. The old architects have no idea how to.
She did the video too. Any particular aspect you want to delve deeper into?
No, that was fine. Can you take it down Union coming from the east?
From along Union coming from the east.
Other way, yeah. Or coming, you want Union coming from the east?
Coming from the east. Towards
And then you can back up a little bit, yeah. Oh, sorry, Union down the hill, Come on this end and look that way. There you go. I do want to point out the difference in that north face between GA and this building and the comparative height and scale.
At this corner, there is an entrance available for the users of the buildings. Should they want to ride their bicycles, go jogging, etc., you can enter right in here. There are changing rooms, showers, bike storage, etc. Other questions?
How do the city's design standards apply to this building? Do they apply at all?
I'll take that one, if you'll grant me a moment. So, yes, we are working with the city in close collaboration, and we have agreed to observe their frontage design standards, and in fact improve all block faces quite a bit. And by improve, I mean we're going to add street trees, we're going to improve sidewalk widths, we're going to provide amenities that the city has asked for that I'd like to think we would provide in any regard, but that would be bike parking on all block faces, seating, some types of weather protection on all the faces of the building to some degree, not necessarily continuous along the entire building edge. So we're working closely with the city on those things. In addition, when we do get to a construction stage with this project, the city plans to embed a building official in the project team. They will have somebody assigned full-time every day that will basically be living with the rest of the project team and working on those permitting issues that the city will be in charge of reviewing and issuing. Does that answer the question?
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah.
Somewhat, but the city has, you know, A and B streets, and some streets are pedestrian streets and some aren't.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that Capitol Way
Yes.
is a pedestrian street.
We've been asked to develop Capitol Way to a wider sidewalk width, but there are aspirations for all sides of the site. But you're right, Capitol Way is developed to a slightly different standard.
Well, I mean, which probably needs to be the most pedestrian-friendly
Right,
of the city streets.
yes, and we're planning a wider sidewalk.
So there's interest, I mean, this building is the only building that has an entrance on Capitol Way.
Well, all the buildings have some entrance facing towards the city, but yes, not all of them have entrances directly on Capitol Way, correct. So we are working with the city, and I anticipate evolving the block-based designs with the winning team and getting something really special. Hope that answers it. Sorry for taking up your time.
I just might add, we do have an entrance on this building on Capitol Way. It just happens to be toward the north part.
There is an entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on the corner, Union and Capitol, right?
Right.
Yeah, where the plaza is,
Yeah.
kind of the city plaza.
There's the entrance.
You know, living in the community, we know that that corner is the opening to the city for anybody coming from the Capitol campus. You walk right there, whether you're going across the street to Subway or the new McCody's, or you're going downtown, that's the corner. You're walking up and down Capitol Way. So we recognize that. It was one of the elements that we said, that city plaza needs to be amenity for the community, which is why we put it there. Other questions? Over here.
I'll go back to my earlier question. You talked about conference rooms and space. You know, what capacity are you anticipating, and do you think that can be used for community use, or are you just thinking of internal use for the building that you're using?
The programming use of the building is up to the state, okay? But it is designed, from our perspective, to certainly allow that to happen if the state desires. It was one of the factors that we wanted to make sure, again, another opportunity for the state and the city to come together with an amenity that can be used for all of us.
And Martin, if I may, this building was talked about as a 50 or 100-year building, so we felt very strongly, you know, we're not smart enough, and you know, nobody is to know how it's going to be used in the future, so we said we've got to have an entrance that faces the city. You got to have an entrance that faces the campus. Those can be controlled and keyed, and you can open to at certain times and close, but for the long-term use, it just made perfect sense to us.
Did we answer the question?
Capacity in terms of conference rooms.
Let's see, the biggest, Dennis, how big is the biggest? It's like
500 square foot conference rooms, that one, 3,000.
there's the biggest one is about 3,000, 3,200.
Visible, I mean, there's a front door and show them the, you know, come in this door.
Come on in there, young. So if you take a look, the 3,200 square foot, the largest conference room in the building is right here, right there. And it's
This whole roofing is not.
yeah, and this was designed, it can be subdivided into 3 smaller rooms or opened into one 3,200 foot room. And then, Young, if you look to the left, there behind the mural, there are 4, 5, 6, like 500 square foot conference rooms.
Entrance
And
there.
we set up restrooms just to build, just to support that conferencing area, so people don't have to go further into the building. You truly can use it as a conference center if you desire. Other questions? very much.
Hey, thanks for coming tonight, everyone. I think, considering it's a school night, and unless there's any burning wrap-up questions, we should probably slowly disperse and head home. And don't forget all the other methods for contacting the state about this project, sending in questions. Thank you.
What do I do now?
That's all the questions. Are we done?
Yeah. Can we vote now?
I want to vote.
They have to give up the day job, it just is too much.